Now you tell me, do you think the bank really cares if your water pump isn't perfectly reliable? I don't mean to be blunt, but if you've ever seen Goodfellas, your bank is basically saying, F you, pay me. Now let's talk about why your RV is an investment vehicle for the banks first and a recreational vehicle for your family second. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Do it for the doggies. Let's start with this. Your RV is not necessarily made to be a recreational vehicle for your family. It's made to be collateral for a loan. It's an investment device as much as it is a capital good being sold to your family. This banking reality really controls the entire RV manufacturing industry.
What are you, a drug dealer or a banker? Because if you're a banker, you can right off.
I'm going to talk about in a moment, but let's cover some of the more traditional reasons, some of the more formal and informal reasons that RV construction is so bad. It's important, though, to note that generalizations about the quality of RVs produced in North America may not apply universally to all manufacturers and models. However, some criticisms of the RV industry in the region include concerns about build quality, materials, and overall durability. Several factors contribute to these perceptions, and while it's not a blanket statement for all RVs, I will discuss some common issues here. Cost-cutting measures. To stay competitive, some RV manufacturers may use cost-cutting measures in materials and construction, potentially impacting the overall quality of the RV. Costs of RVs have gone up, and they're also de-accessorizing them as a result. Rapid production pace is another issue. The demand for RVs post-pandemic has led to manufacturers prioritizing quantity over quality, and this resulted in faster production processes that compromised attention to detail. We have inconsistent quality control in this industry. There's variability in the quality control processes amongst different manufacturers, and this often contributes to the inconsistency in the final product. Supply chain challenges. The RV industry, like many others, has faced disruptions in the supply chain. The COVID-19 pandemic has particularly impacted the availability of materials, components, and labor, leading to the potential delays and compromises in production. We have labor shortages. Depending on who you ask, you will find approximately 80 to 85% of the RVs are built around Elkhart, Indiana. The pandemic caused labor shortages in the Elkhart area, and this resulted in challenges relating to hiring, training, and retraining skilled workers, potentially affecting the overall craftsmanship of the RVs coming out of the area. There was a surge in demand for RVs, and it was partially fueled by the desire for travel during the pandemic. This had put additional pressures on manufacturers to produce units quickly, potentially impacting the thoroughness of the manufacturing process. It's essential to recognize that there are exceptions to manufacturers that prioritize quality, investment in craftsmanship, and maintain rigorous quality control standards. So those are the more traditional reasons, the formal and informal reasons that we see a lot of problems in the RV manufacturing industry when it comes to quality control. But like I said, there's something more insidious, something a little deeper into this process that needs to be discussed. And the way I like to talk about these types of problems is something I learned all the way back in like college political science class. And I dissect a lot of problems through these lenses. So I'm trying to understand a process. I try to think of it in three layers.
Layers. Onions have layers? You get it.
You know, not everybody like onions.
What is the formal definition of the process? What is the informal, actual operation of the process? And what structurally underlies the actual process at the ground level? Often it's called like the bureaucratic level, right? The people level that really defines a process a lot more than how it's defined formally. Now, I know that's a little heady. Let's get into it a little more here.
Cake! Everybody loves cakes. Cakes have layers.
I don't care.
So what we'll be diving into now is how does the banking industry affect RVs, and why is that actually the mechanism for control and influence over RVs more than actual customer demand and complaints?
That greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Now I'll talk about the insidious influence that effectively the banks have on the RV market. So let me give you an example with the RV industry. Formally, it's set up such that the manufacturers out there work with the dealerships in partnership with the dealerships to get you, the end user, your RV. That's the formal process. That's how we understand it today. And that's true. That's how the system is built. RV manufacturers don't sell direct to the consumer. They sell through dealerships to the consumer. And with RVs, it's a little different than it is with automotive dealerships in that generally an RV dealership will have many different manufacturers that they're working with, whereas a car dealership will usually have one or two. They'll just be a Ford dealership or a Chevy dealership. So that's the formal process. But informally, really the dealers are the customers for the RV manufacturers, in that the manufacturers are selling to the dealers and the dealers are selling to you. And in that case, effectively, informally, there's really a customer relationship between the dealer and the manufacturer, just like there's a customer relationship between you and the dealership. And that's informally how it works. But then there's the structural. What's really going on? How does it really work? Do you, the consumer, really go out there and buy an RV from a dealership? Or is it really the bank who's buying it from the dealership? And you're actually, maybe putting a down payment on, and you're maybe a co-owner, but in most cases, people are financing their RVs, and thus it is the bank that is the lien holder. It is the bank that is the customer. Furthermore, when it comes to the RV dealership buying RVs from the manufacturer, they're not buying them. The banks are actually buying it, or at least the banks are handing the money over to the manufacturer. I mean, there may be some cases where the manufacturer is not collecting the money until it actually sells at the dealership. But for the most part, you can assume that the dealership is taking out loans, and really a third party is in ownership of those assets, even if they don't actually have physical ownership of them. In the end, those assets are the collateral for the money that the dealership took out to build up their stock. And now that stock represents ownership to the bank, right? At least until they sell it, it's the bank's asset, not the dealer's asset. And why I keep pointing this out is it's really the bank that is the functional customer in both of these locations. There might be commercial banks working between the dealership and the dealer, and there might be more traditional consumer banks that are working between the dealer and the end user. But it's the bank that's buying that asset. I don't mean to be blunt, but if you've ever seen Goodfellas, your bank is basically saying,
now the guy's got to come up with Paulie's money every week, no matter what. Business bad? You pay me. Oh, you had a fire? You pay me.
is your RV not working? F you, pay me. Now you tell me, do you think the bank really cares if your water pump isn't perfectly reliable? Do you think the bank really cares if this particular manufacturer is really losing the faith of the end user because the quality of this particular RV is not quite up to par? Do you think that if you have major problems with your RV that you don't have to pay your bank? F you, pay me. The purpose of that RV from the bank's perspective isn't that it has a good working water pump or that the windows are extra insulated or any feature like that. The only quality that the bank needs to really see in that RV is that it is an asset that you can be held responsible for, and it can be held as collateral. It is a financial instrument or a financial vehicle for the bank. Many people do not use their RVs very much. Did you not use your RV a lot this year? F you, pay me. If you look at most RVers' use of their RV, it's a ridiculous percentage of the year that the RV is sitting idle. You spend all this money, you maintain monthly insurance, you're paying monthly payments on this thing that you're gonna maybe use 2 or 3 times a year. Yeah, I did 7 to 8 weeks in my RV this year. I'm hoping to do even more next year, so I'm not a typical case. Most RVers do not use their RVs that much. So think about, from the bank's perspective, they're selling this loan for this asset that's basically certified as brand new or nearly new, depending on what kind of deal you have set up. And it's just going to sit there in somebody's driveway and represent an obligation to you to pay them. That's what its role is. Its role is to be an obligation to you to pay them. This RV is a financial instrument for the banks to make money. At least that's the way the banks see it. And the banks are the ones who are controlling the roost. If the banks weren't putting in their money, the dealers wouldn't be able to buy their stock from the manufacturers, and you, the consumer, wouldn't be able to buy an RV from the dealer. To be clear, I'm not faulting the manufacturers. I think the folks that decide to start a new RV company and try to do something different truly are trying to do something different. They are truly trying to get to the end user a quality product. But as they go to achieve these goals, they're going to have to do it with the bank's blessing, effectively. And the bank is blessing them by maintaining good credit ratings with them, offering them money and credit to use, and being able to bankroll their product to the dealers when it comes time for the manufacturers to sell off their stock. So we go back to sort of the original idea, which is, why aren't RVs built better? Why do customers accept this reality? Well, in the end, you're not the customer, the bank is. And that really changes the dynamic. And yeah, you can say the same thing about a car, but the car is going to be yours in 3 to 5 years, or you're going to resell it. But with RVs, the first 3 to 5 years, most people still owe a lot of money on their RV. Some people actually go all the way out with 20-year loans on their RV.
That's crazy talk.
No, it's true.
Have you ever seen a 20-year-old RV? They're not worth much at that point. Again, a manufacturer is not going to wait for you to pay off your loan for them to get their money. They're going to want their money right away. The dealers are going to want to get their money when the loan is issued. And it's really you and the banks that are going into this 20-year agreement, or 10-year or 5-year, whatever you have set up. This is where it's fundamentally a sickness that won't be cured. This is the sickness of money and power, right? The reality is money rules. Money is what dictates how things are going to happen. And in this case, the money flows to the manufacturers and to the dealers from the banks and from your pocket. And the bankers are going to decide whether or not they want to work with a particular manufacturer or not. The manufacturer is going to have to be pretty bad for a bank not to work directly with it. It's more likely that they're going to be such a bad manufacturer that the consumers aren't going to want to use this. And if you think about the relationship of who the customer is and where the money flows, I think for me, it becomes intuitively a lot more obvious why the RV manufacturing industry isn't more attentive to quality control. Making an incremental change to quality control will not change how the banks get paid or how much money the banks are willing to shell out. So this is the fundamental reasoning why I think the problem with RV manufacturing and the fact of quality control will continue to be a problem as long as there's this extreme financing model in place. I don't see that changing. I don't see how it could change. But because of that, in the end, the banks are the customer, not you. You are a customer of the bank, not of the RV manufacturer or the RV dealership. And it's important to keep that structural reality in mind when you're trying to navigate the roadways between the dealer, the dealership, the manufacturer, and maybe your insurer and bank at different times. It's important to understand where the money flows and who is really the customer here. Now, I could be wrong, and I'd love to hear your counterpoints. So let me know, do you think this has anything to do with why RVs aren't made well? Make sure you comment below. I want to hear what you have to say. Consumer reviews and industry reports. Here comes the rain.